Just imagine for a second being called a cockroach by the elite establishment where you live. Well, that's what India's Chief Justice did. He compared jobless young people to cockroaches. And so millions of young Indians thought, yeah, OK, let's be cockroaches. They got organised and made that insult their power, turning it into one of the biggest youth movements that India has seen in years. A movement that's now collided head-on with a police crackdown that's reportedly left dozens injured. These pictures are from yesterday when police in New Delhi clashed with protesters to stop them from marching on Parliament. Thanks for joining this DW News live stream. I'm Jared Reid. I'm here with correspondents Nimisha, Jaiswal here in the studio with me, and down the line Adil, Bhat in New Delhi. Today we're answering your questions about the Cockroach Janta party, a movement that's not only pulled in Gen Z but people across ages and classes. They're demanding more jobs, better education, less corruption and leaders who actually answer to them. So send us in your questions and comments. Adil and Nimisha will do their best to answer them. Adil, Bhat in New Delhi, we're going to start with you. You're at the protest site. It was a very dramatic day yesterday. We can see what's going on behind you, but just tell us what's happening there now. What's the energy like?
Well, Jared, this is the second day of the protest and currently standing right outside the Jantar Mantar. This is a designating protest site. And I've been speaking with a lot of protesters here who were part of the protest yesterday, and they've been part of protest today as well. Some of them are with me. They've been waiting to speak with us for the last half an hour. So I'll start with them to have a conversation to get it started. So I have a student with me from Karnataka, from UP. This is one from MP, northern state of MP, and one from Uttar Pradesh. So we'll start from him. This is his first day. Can you tell us why you're here?
Yeah, I'm here to support the students who are protesting against the system and against the paper leak. So I came here today after watching yesterday what happened on social media and the TV news channels.
When you saw the police brutality, how protests were dealt yesterday, what did you see and how are you feeling?
See, actually, from morning I was just seeing continuously that's what's going on in this protest, because the CJP party has called on 20th July the Parliament March, and from starting before 20 July, 19th July, Sonam Wangchuk and the other leaders have detained from the stage. But after that, they also started march, and till 12 p.m. or 2 or 3 p.m. it was just going peacefully. But in between that time, I saw on TV media that police and students came in front of each other. And what happened at that time, that moment became just unstructured. That someone is claiming that students are pelting that stones, but someone is claiming that police personnel are pelting the stones. No one knows that what did actually happen at that time, at that moment when protest gone violent.
Okay, so Jared, I have students and protesters from southern state of India, which is Karnataka. They have also come. They have traveled for the last 2 days, and they will also want to speak with us. And let me ask one question: why did you come here also? Like you came from Karnataka.
Yes, I came from Karnataka, and I'm here for the cause that is for Dharmendra Pradhan, who is our Union Education Minister, for his resignation, because the education system has gone corrupt and we want to make the system proper. So the young future, the youths who can have a better future and have better education, and we can see a better India. And
also you also came from Karnataka, right?
Yeah.
And also, why did you decide to join this protest?
Look,
and what did you see yesterday? Are you angry about that?
Yes. I can tell you something about what happened yesterday. I'm now 36 years old. I'm no more a student, but I did used to be a student. I like reading. I like traveling. What I saw yesterday was there was actually military tactics that were used on the protesters. They had systematically barricaded the streets. We were in the Parliament Street. It's called Sansad Marg. And once the barricades were in place, they let people in. And then when the people were too much, they started pushing them back using lathi charges. And then at some point, they got the, the tear gas cannons. And I think within 15 minutes, they shot about 10, 12 shots on the protesters to just push them into like a stampede or something.
So, Jared, you just heard from them. These are the students who are part of the protest. They have witnessed the police brutality yesterday, and they're telling us their experience about it. I was also covering protests, and we witnessed the similar things. Police using lathi charge, which means like they were beating students with sticks. And we also saw how they were like throwing gas grenades, like, shells. And we witnessed that in front of us. And after speaking with these students, they're telling us they're pretty angry because I've been speaking with them for the last 1 hour. They're way also frustrated with what's happening because there have been no demands met so far. They've been demanding that they want the resignation of Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan, but it seems government is not listening to them. That's why they are here. This is the second day. They want to stay and continue to be with this part of the protest. So that's happening here right now.
Adil, we've been just then, the students were telling us what they saw and the violence that they witnessed. Do we know why the police decided to resort to violence yesterday?
Well, police is denying they're denying the police brutality. They're telling us that they did not use any lathi charge, they did not use any tear gas shells. So they're denying it on camera. We tried to approach them yesterday. Why using? Because as a reporter, I witnessed it when they were throwing tear gases, when they're using police brutality. We witnessed it in front of us, but they keep denying it. Some of them say on camera, off the camera, that they're trying to protect infrastructure of the government. They're trying to tell students, go away, because this protesting designated sign is not according to them. They did not take permission for this one. So they're trying to stop this crowd and trying to push them away from this protesting side. That's their way of telling their story.
Yeah, Nimisha Jaiswal here in the studio with me. The police denying that they resorted to violence, but clearly that's something that has happened. It's not a good look.
Well, not at all, Jared, but unfortunately, this is far from the first time we've seen Delhi police deploying violence. This is a very regular feature when it comes to protests, especially in the center of Delhi. And an interesting repetition we've seen over the last 12 years of this government is that protest is demonized as anti-national, at times as anti-Hindu, which is a central tenet of the current government. And it is essentially seen as something that is funded by external forces. We're also seeing comments of that nature in the chat, because that is something that is a repetition of what is seen as a pro-government voice. Essentially, people saying that this is not really a core movement, it's not organic, it's either funded by the opposition or by external forces that want to destabilize India. So there's a real hesitation in actually just acknowledging active dissent or these youth protests, and the actions of the police do seem to be carrying that out. There hasn't really been any strong criticism from the government itself, and definitely no apology. Another feature of this government, it never apologizes.
So the government's really not engaging really in a constructive way with this as yet. Adil, given the police violence that happened yesterday, as I understand, the Cockroach Janta movement has said that it is not going to actually try and march on Parliament anymore because they are worried of a repeat of what happened yesterday. How true is that, and is it a sign that they're having to adapt their tactics?
Well, you're right. I mean, if you speak with the CJP spokesperson, they are sorry about that the students were treated badly, they were injured. But what they're trying to do now is they're trying to get together at this protesting site, the designated protest, Jantar Mantar, and they will continue their protests. The tactics will remain. They're saying they will not go to the Parliament march. They will stop it. They will think about it. They will do deliberations on it, whether we should go. Because what happened yesterday, they don't want to repeat it again. Because as you see, the reports are coming, dozens of students are injured. We see some of the students, they're currently in Delhi hospital where they're being treated. There is a report that one of the young student is critically injured, and we're waiting for that, what's going to happen to that one. So when you see these kind of reports happening, when you see protesters being injured, so there is some kind of anxiety from government also, and there is anxiety from Cockroach Janta party also. They don't want to take risk and put these students out on the streets then, because they know the reality. Once they will be out, they will be dealt with brute force that we saw yesterday. And they say all we can do right now is gather again, do deliberations, think about how should we move forward, but definitely not like push them again or give any kind of a call that you should come to join in Parliament March. So that's what's happening right now. That's the update we have from here.
Adil, it's important to mention too that a number of police officers were injured themselves in these clashes yesterday. What can you tell us about that?
Yes, that's true. There are reports that some of the police personnel were also in. Some of the protesters tried to push them, but we don't know the numbers of that yet. But there are reports that government is claiming that police personnel were also injured as well. But let me ask final question because they've been waiting with us, Jared, and they want to go. I would like to ask them last question, and then we can take this conversation forward. So to you, and what's your plan? Would you like to stay in this protest? Are you going back home?
We booked ticket now for a week, and what happened yesterday, I think we knew it that this is going to happen, but the level of brutality is something that shook us. But I think we are here to stay. We are not moving anywhere until the education minister resigns, and that part is very clear to us.
And how do you feel about, because government initially did not recognize this protest,
Yeah.
and they are still skeptical about it. They're telling like, we will think about it, like, but not giving clear answer. How do you feel about government response to it?
I think the government is too silent on this, and they're not acknowledging the students or the protest or the deaths of the suicides what students has committed for the NEET exams. They're not showing any kind of what you call the moral grounds to it, or the greenness, or
You're not
any
even a tweet.
not even a talk with those families. And when we see not only on the NEET, with other exams also what is happening, the paper leaks or the corrupt systems, or with the revaluations problems or the marking system, so everything is very bad where the government is not taking any action onto it.
Okay, so Jared, you just for 1 minute. Jared, you just heard from them, like students are frustrated about the indifference from the government. They've been demanding the resignation of education minister for last 1 month. It's this indifference, like that's actually hurting them. That's making them worry. What if like there have been suicides, roughly around 20 people, 24 people, they died because of examination leak. But this indifference, this kind of careless attitude that government doesn't want to like listen or budge, that's what's concerning for these students. So this kind of arrogance they want to challenge, that's what we hear from protesters at the designated site of Jantar Mantar. So that's worrisome, and that's the frustration these students are expressing, these protesters are expressing with us.
Adil, some people watching this, we've heard this key demand from the people you're speaking to and others about the resignation of the education minister. Could you just explain specifically why they want this person to resign? What's happened that's led to this call?
Well, this demand kind of started like a month or 2 months ago when there was a entrance exam, national level entrance exam, which is called a NEET. It's an exam which is kind of an aspiration for for middle-class families in India. They appear in this examination. For them, it's a hope to become doctor, like in families, like rural areas, middle-class families or poor families. This is the only way that poor family can elevate their standard by appearing this exam to become doctors. So these are like their dreams, their aspirations for every middle-class family or poor family. What has happened in the last 2 months back, roughly, there was an examination leak, but not only one, consecutive examination leaks. That led to kind of frustration among the students. It's after that examination leak, students are demanding resignation of education minister. That's where the demand started. And it's still continuing because education minister is making kind of a fun. He's calling these like they are like some sort of labeling them kind of an anti-national as well. So which is kind of pushing anger and kind of students saying, what's happening? He's not listening to our demands. That's why they are like on the streets telling him, unless until you don't resign, we're going to stay here. We will continue to continue this protest.
Okay. You're talking about the government engagement, and I'd like to bring in Nimisha here to talk about that. Nimisha, let's talk a bit more about the government's engagement with this, how it's been responding. First of all, though, let's hear from the Cockroach Party founder and something that they had to say in the last day.
What the Delhi police has done today, the way they have beaten students, the way they have hit them on their heads, it's very shameful. The country's reputation is being damaged worldwide because of this. We all know why the Delhi police did it, because they received orders from Narendra Modi and Amit Shah.
That's a serious allegation, that they received orders, that the police received orders from Prime Minister Narendra Modi. How much can a claim like that be verified? And just talk to us a little bit more about how seriously the government's engaging with these protests.
Well, Jared, overall, in terms of who's responsible for the Delhi police, it is the Home Minister, Internal Affairs Minister of India, Amit Shah, who the leader of the CJP just named there. So the responsibility does lie with him. The opposition parties have called for his resignation as well as a consequence of the violence that has reportedly been used against these students. When it comes to Prime Minister Modi himself, as you mentioned, the anger was very much focused on the education minister, but it was the forceful removal of activist and educator Sonam Wangchuk, who had been fasting in support of this protest for over 20 days. That has actually truly turned the tide. That happened last weekend, and that really brought in a lot more people in support of this protest. And that also is one of the reasons that these thousands of people turned out on this march on Parliament on Monday. And now this violence is further exacerbating those protests, and that these seem like miscalculations on both the police's and the government's parts. Just to address engagement, there is some semblance of dialogue going on. Maybe it might be a stretch to call it dialogue. We do know that two leaders of the Cockroach Janta party met with the government minister on the same day as this march. They handed over some demands, including the resignation of this minister, as well as compensation for the families of students who have committed suicide as a consequence of examination pressures. We also heard reports that at an alliance meeting of the ruling government, Prime Minister Modi did raise concerns about these examinations. He did say that this should not happen again. He said that there should be strict action taken against the people who have leaked these examination papers. But what's interesting here, Jared, is that those two things are never brought together. The Prime Minister did not acknowledge the protests. It's interesting, I was looking at his X feed, and every post he puts up, commenters say, are you seriously not going to talk about this? Are you actually going to keep ignoring this? At the Parliament session as well, no mention of it. The opposition parties are demanding that he say something in Parliament. That's not happened yet. And as I mentioned earlier, there is a real resistance from this government to apologize. There is, and in the past protests too that we have seen against this government, there's never a moment of saying, we hear you, we are sorry, we will fix this. There can be a bit of we will fix this that we are hearing, but there's no apology and there's no direct acknowledgement of these protests.
Yeah, interesting. And just to be clear, the exams that you're talking about, these are very, very important exams for people who are leaving, I guess, primary education and want to, I guess, get into universities or get into important government jobs that really are key to improving one's own, and for their families too, their own economic livelihood and futures.
Exactly. And Adil briefly mentioned this as well. He referred to this when talking about the pressures on these students. And it is important for anybody who's not familiar with India's education landscape to understand that these are not just students protesting for one examination, for one simple test inconvenience. For many of these students, especially those who have faced India's caste system and the so-called lower castes, there is a systematic economic backwardness that they've grown up with. And for them, as well as their families, clearing these examinations, including medical, engineering, government jobs, is the only way to to come out of poverty, to make a name for themselves. You know, there's a lot of hope riding on this. And another really crucial thing is a lot of these families who don't have many means spend their life savings on finding tuitions or coaching, as it is called in India, for these students to clear these examinations. So when these papers are leaked and these examinations are cancelled, these students who have been spending years studying privately as a consequence of sometimes faulty primary education systems to clear these examinations, when they're asked to reappear, the emotional toll of that is what we're seeing as a consequence of all these students some students who have committed suicide, but also all these students are turning out to protest. They're saying, give us a fair shot, at least the one shot that we have to climb out of this difficult life circumstance that we're dealing with, our entire families, money, hopes, dreams. Give us a clear shot. And that it really seems like the government which is responsible for conducting these examinations. I do want to quickly point out that Prime Minister Modi said that central governments and state governments both conduct this. There is a bit of deflection of blame in that sense, but it is a fact as well. But all of them should be coming together to fix this problem rather than assigning blame or claiming that there is, insidious motive.
Yeah. Now, we can go back to Adil Bhat, who's at the site of the Cockroach Janta protests. Adil, Nimisha's just been, I guess, outlining how Narendra Modi hasn't really been engaging with the protesters and their demands so far. And we've had a question as to whether Modi plans something to end the protest. But what I'm interested in too is how organised the Cockroach Janta party is. Does it have a clear leadership structure, or is it more online driven? I'm just wondering, if Narendra Modi did end up deciding to listen and talk to them, who would he meet with? Is there a clear structure from this movement?
First, I would like to answer Nimisha's question. See, I spoke with a lot of experts, also analysts who are coming here. So the idea that Prime Minister Modi doesn't want to kind of bow down is he doesn't want to show any sign of weakness. So that's the reason he doesn't want to accept the demand of a resignation of Education Minister. One of the experts told me that's the kind of key significant feature of an authoritarian leader, he called Prime Minister Modi. When I was speaking, he said any authoritarian leader, he is pretty insecure. He doesn't want to show any weakness. If he asks resignation of Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan, it would set a signal to common people that Modi can listen. And Modi doesn't want to kind of give any sign to people that I will be ready to accept your demands. So that's one. Number two, there is a clear structure. Cockroach Janta Party is founded by Abhijit Dipke, and they have spokesperson as well. What we saw day before yesterday, spokesperson from Cockroach Janta Party, they went to meet top minister of Modi government, and they had a conversation roughly it was a brief conversation about the demands. They do have a structure, and they know how to kind of work it out. And Dipke is the one who makes calls, but they have spokespersons, and then they have activists, and then they have students who are associated with him who kind of disseminate this information. So there is a pretty solid structure in place, but there are solidarities also coming in. There are left-wing parties from Jawaharlal Nehru University in Delhi. They also extend their solidarities. They also help them to organize this protest. That's why you see this protest, which started with some small numbers, and yesterday we have thousands of protesters on the streets. And I have never witnessed anything like this for the last couple of years. We have seen protests in Delhi before, but the kind of protest that we witnessed yesterday, it was unprecedented. I have never seen that kind of number in the last roughly 3-4 years. So, but Jared, let me give you last comment to one of the protesters, and he wants to say something, but he would like to speak in Hindi, and I would like to ask him a question, then I'll translate. So, what will be your message to Prime Minister Modi?
मेरा माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी से निवेदन है हम सब बच्चों की तरफ से कि एक कम्युनिकेशन का चैनल ओपन रहना चाहिए, एक बच्चों और सरकार के बीच एक कम्युनिकेशन होना चाहिए, और सारे मसलों में जो समस्या जो रहती मूल में संवाद की कमी, तो अगर कम्युनिकेशन होगा, कुछ जो स्टूडेंट लीडर हैं और गवर्नमेंट के जो लीडर हैं उसमें लगातार संवाद अगर होगा तो हो सकता है कि बात बने, और बात करने से ही बात बनती है, जब तक बात नहीं करेंगे तब तक बात नहीं बनेगी.
Okay, I just wanted to because most of the students here, they're from, they want to they came to us, they wanted to speak in Hindi. I wanted to give a voice to those students also and protesters. And what he's telling us right now, he's saying that dialogue is the only way forward. And what they are expecting, that they would like Prime Minister Modi to have dialogue with Cockroach Janta Party, either protesters, because dialogue is the only way they can come with some conclusion. That's how they can end their protests. That's what the last comment we heard from the protesters. This is the second day, and he has been here, and he would like to stay here for a couple of days more.
Yeah,
and that's it from here.
And
from these protesters. And
okay, Nimisha, I'm just wondering if you have any, if you'd like to weigh into what we just heard from those students.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting when we talk about past protests and the existence of dialogue or the lack thereof, essentially, Jared, because there have been several protests against this government, but the two main ones that we've seen in the last 12 years of Prime Minister Modi's government, and at a time, like I said, where protests are demonized, the first, I mean, both of them happened kind of parallelly, but there were massive protests against a citizenship law that was being brought in that basically made religion a test of citizenship for the first time and was seen as against the Muslim minority especially. And that had a lot of youth engagement. The second was a massive farmer protest that went on over 2 years and then continued later on as well against 3 bills that were seen as detrimental to farmers' rights and the selling price that they could attain. Now, these farmer protests were the only ones that have actually made this government react. Those laws were eventually repealed. The citizenship protests were also against a law, but they eventually were shut down because of the COVID pandemic. When we look at the fact that these two were against laws, this is about a specific person's resignation. There could be a feeling, like Adil said, that this man stepping down would end up looking like the government acknowledging its mistakes. And when it comes to dialogue, there were 11 rounds of talks between farmers and the government before these laws were rolled back. But with this particular case, there was a 10-minute meeting. It does not seem evident that the government really wants to engage with these students. Their demands are also pretty basic when you look at it. So,
yeah, and we're just seeing some live pictures now. It looks like some arguments breaking out there. Nimisha was just talking about, I guess, 2 particularly key rounds of protests, I think within the last 6 years or so, that really put pressure on the government. You were talking about how you were sort of laying out this farmers' movement and how this was really the only time that Narendra Modi bowed to these demands, and you were talking about the differences between this protest and those ones. What would happen if, for example, groups like farmers, very influential group, decided to join forces with what we're seeing today?
I mean, that's interesting, Jared, because the farmers did hold protests in 2023 and 24 as well. This was after these laws were already repealed. Those did not end up resulting in their demands being met. There is a skepticism of the government against these farmer movements. During those protests, they were compared to the Khalistan movement, which was a move to essentially, it was a separatist movement that is illegal in India. So there was an attempt to malign those protests as well. So there is a chance that the government reacts to the farmers joining by saying that this is political. But overall, when it comes to public perception, there is real support for these farmers. There's a lot of emotional that there's emotional ties to the fact that, these farmers came out and said no farmers, no food during those protests. That was really iconic during those protests, and them lending support here could also be seen as a moment of resonance for this government to actually react. But I'm not sure if that would actually shift what this government does. So far, it doesn't seem like these farmers have clearly said that they want to join these protests. But I also want to comment briefly on the visuals we're seeing and the voices we're hearing at these protests, because when the police says that they are reacting to protesters turning violent, this is also a very common allegation. The police always says that we did not act first, we were reacting to violence being carried out against us. And we have seen protest leaders as well as a member of parliament who joined these protests saying, sit back down, do not engage, do not give these people a reason to attack you, to lathi charge you or baton charge you or, throw tear gas at you, because they will use this as an excuse. And these visuals, Jared, are really also crucial when it comes to India's history of non-violent protest, India's history of fasting as a way of protest. That dates back to Gandhian protests, who is, of course, seen as the father of the nation. And the fact that the educator I mentioned earlier was carried away behind white sheets, the way these students were allegedly attacked by the police, all of this is also being compared all the way back to the freedom movement. There are comparisons being made to the colonial British government at that point of time. And that is also what Adil was referring to, that a lot of these protesters are alleging that this behavior is authoritarian. And it is very hard to deflect that blame when these videos, there was an internet shutdown yesterday. So videos are still trickling in because they were made even if they couldn't be posted. And with this evidence floating around, it is very hard for this government to claim that this was a violent protest that had to be contained, because it is peaceful to a large extent from what we are seeing. And that clash is not looking good for this government.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. And Adil, I'd like to get maybe your thoughts on that in terms of what we're seeing in terms of restriction of movement, which doesn't appear to be the case today. And as Nimisha was saying, there was an internet blackout yesterday, but that doesn't appear to be the case today, since we're talking to you.
Yes, I mean, internet is back now, but let me give you some idea how it was yesterday. So from my office to this protesting site, Jantar Mantar, it hardly takes half an hour. So when we left the office yesterday, it took us more than 3 hours to reach here because all the roads leading to this protesting site, they were barricaded and police will stop you because the idea was not to allow protesters who are coming from different states. They don't want to allow them to reach here. So that was the scene. And also they were pushing back these protesters, these students. Most of them are like, actually Gen Z protesters, 70 to 80% people that we met yesterday. I could even draw some similarities with the Nepal's Gen Z movement. And I was just thinking because I happened to cover that. The concerns or like the demands are similar. The anxiety of youth, their unemployment. These are the similar concerns what you hear from these protesters on the streets. And also we heard slogans like Modi tumhari tanashahi nahi chalegi, which translate that Modi you're a dictator and this will not work in India. Then there was another slogan that protesters would say, jab Modi darta hai to police ko aage karta hai, which meant like when Modi fears protesters, he uses police to cover it up, or like he uses police to unleash the brutality. So these slogans will give you some kind of a pulse what's happening on the streets of Delhi and what's happening with this movement. And the simple demand for these students, protesters, is like just one demand. I mean, I'll keep narrow it down to that is the resignation of education minister and compensation for the people who died because of suicide. And they're not listening, they're not budging to it. That's like frustrating for these people. And they're saying they will come here, they will continue this protest as soon as they can. I mean, that's the plan it looks like from here. And you could still hear, I mean, the slogans coming out from this Jantar Mantar side. Since morning, they've been using this sloganeering that we hear often and often, and they are not kind of keeping silent anymore. It doesn't look like that the movement is going to go away soon, and they will continue to do so. Let's see what their plans will, which we'll come to know from the spokesperson or like from founder of CJP, Cockroach Janta Party, Abhijit Dipke. So that's what's happening on the site right now.
Please.
Yeah, I want to jump in, Jared, to also talk about the images that we are looking at right now. That is former Chief Minister of Delhi, Arvind Kejriwal, as well as members of his party, talking to leaders of the Cockroach Janta Party and essentially coming to this protest to express solidarity. And that is really interesting because one aspect of it is, of course, Modi's call for this not to be a partisan issue. He's saying this is not about that. He also, there were reports of this alliance meeting that he said young people can be easily misguided or misled, which can come off a little bit patronizing given the context of these protests. But there is this allegation that opposition leaders are fueling these protests, that they are profiting from them, that they're only showing support to profit from them, to call for Modi to step down, to call for Mr. Amit Shah, the Home Minister, to step down. But this is a moment that is also, when I'm looking at political analysis around this, so that's been interesting because opposition parties in India did perform well at the last election. The Modi government did form the alliance, but it was the first time that it didn't have a majority. But so far, they've been a bit scattered. When it comes to the last few state elections, the BJP has performed really well. So this could be a moment for them to show that support, but it's also an interesting balancing act for this movement to make sure that they are continued to be seen as organic and legitimate while acknowledging support from these politicians as well as thanking them for it. We've also had Samajwadi Party leader Akhilesh Yadav come out and make statements, and these are regional parties that have some force where they come from. And I also do want to mention that former Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal has himself faced, I would say, the ire of this government. He had charges against him. He was arrested. He was held in jail for a while. He was eventually cleared. And once again, there were allegations that this was malicious, a malicious attempt to basically bring him down from popularity. And this is him speaking to students who clearly seem to be injured. They seem to be telling him, to be showing him these injuries. We do know that opposition leader Rahul Gandhi also met with injured students. Interestingly, one of the BJP ministers also met with injured students. The Cockroach Janta party reposted that picture saying, maybe don't beat us instead of coming out to meet us after the fact or listen to us or have a dialogue. So it's kind of an interesting interplay going on right now politically in India as well.
So you're essentially saying that appearances by prominent politicians like the ones we are seeing on our screen right now can both hurt and harm this protest movement, harm particularly because they could fuel the government's line that they are not coming together and protesting, that they are, I guess, being paid to do it, fueled by opposition parties.
I mean, what's also really interesting in this particular movement is one can raise these allegations a little bit when it comes to, when the citizenship amendment protests were happening. We found that people were alleging that this is funded by external factors or like supporting Muslims, etc. That is also a bit of a playing card within politics in India. But in this case, it's very hard to criticize parties coming out to support the youth. I think there is this kind of momentum that is driven by the fact that these are, people are calling them children, which can, I said earlier, can seem patronizing, but it can also be seen as an emotional appeal. The person who just spoke to Adil in Hindi, he said that in Hindi said that we would encourage the Prime Minister to speak to us children. So this is also being used by protesters to say, we do not deserve this punishment, we do not deserve this violence, we deserve to be spoken to because we are children, we are the youth, we need to be taken seriously. And when political parties come out in support of youth, I mean, this is also a thing with global protests. Oftentimes, unfortunately, women's protests don't find that momentum. Sometimes farmers' protests don't find that momentum. But unemployment, economic issues, and youth protests have successfully toppled governments like we saw in the region, like Adil referred to. I was covering the Nepal elections and the Bangladesh elections.
I remember, yeah.
Yeah, and over there, both those governments were toppled by youth protest as well as in Sri Lanka. Again, different circumstances, different political atmospheres, and I hate to try to predict the future, but my guess would be that it's unlikely to happen in India. But the resonance of those images, especially if we find out that there was government sanction and backing of violence against students, would definitely be something worth keeping an eye on. We remember former Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina, calling for violence against students and what that did to her image. We have nothing like that in India right now. But if there is clear evidence of the deliberate use of force against students, that would be a very hard misstep or challenge for this government to overcome.
Yeah, it would indeed. And just to keep all of you watching up to date, I'm here with Nimisha Jaiswal in the studio. It seems we have unfortunately lost the line to Adil Bhat in Delhi, but that's okay because we have Nimisha here to answer your questions. So please do keep them coming in. We've had some really great comments so far and we really love to get those. So please do keep them coming in and I'll do my best to put some of them to Nimisha. I'm wondering if we could talk about, I guess, a lot of the focus is on the inaction of Narendra Modi. It seems, though, that a lot of the demands of the protesters have to do with very, very entrenched issues that go back a very, very long time. Is it fair to pin the entire blame on to him and his party?
I mean, that's really interesting, Jared, and it's a very valid question and it could almost help this government to not seem like it's admitting a mistake, but it's actually taking steps to reform a broken system it was handed. And when I talk about that, we would go back to India's founding towards when India first became independent. There was a focus on world-class higher education institutions. We have the Indian Institute of Technology, which produces some of the best engineers that are sent across the world. We have world-class MBA schools. We have medical institutions. And India is really proud of these institutions. And these are the institutions that these students are trying to get into. However, India's primary education system is still so sorely lacking. And this is again where that income divide, you can really see it, because a lot of people who are better off are sent to private education, private schools, public schools that are more accessible to people without the economic means are not as good. So even going back to the root and addressing things like that could actually be a way for this government to say, hey, we've taken your concerns really seriously. We're going to reform everything to make public schooling really worthwhile from the beginning, to reform the entrance examination process. Because again, this protest is taking off of one medical exam that millions have taken. But these concerns around examinations have been raised around engineering exams, around government exams. There have been vacancies for these positions that have been held for ages, and students are waiting and protesting, asking to actually give the exams that they've been preparing for years, that they've been spending money on for years. And those vacancies are not coming out. And sometimes when that exam does happen, the results don't come out. Sometimes when the results do come out, that examination gets cancelled. So it's understandable that there's this reaction, because these are people who just want to be able to make it in life. They've tried to do it in a way that is fair, that is through their hard work, that is through overcoming the educational cards they were dealt. But when they have no option to do that, they take to the streets, as we are seeing right now.
Yeah, and we heard Adil Bhat in New Delhi interviewing some of those students live. We've got some recordings of students also telling us their demands. Let's listen to those, and we'll come back and talk to Nimisha about them.
I think in India, we all know that this education system is not going to be relevant in coming future. We are not competent with the world. If you go in European country, if you go in other developed nations, and if you want to take some parameters from there, I think first they need to change the mechanism of the examination that happens over here.
I have a nephew, he is 7 years old. He had a birthday last day only, and I'm concerned about his future. I hadn't joined CJP protest at all from past few days, but today I had to come for his future, I believe.
Nimisha, Jaiswal here. We were just hearing from some students. I guess you were saying before, students are doing their best to work within the structures that they have been given, but are increasingly finding that it's just not working for them.
No, exactly. And we heard the student there saying that even if there was past apathy to this, what started as a satirical movement, essentially, now with the detention of peaceful protesters, including the educator Sonam Wangchuk, who was fasting, with the crackdown that we are seeing, the visuals we're seeing of students being attacked, there's more and more people coming out. So when it comes to the momentum this movement has, I think it is definitely on a roll right now, and that also would explain why the Cockroach Janta party has said we will not back down until this resignation comes through. No signs of that so far, of course, but with politicians like Arvind Kejriwal, who we see on the screen right now turning out, and many others expressing their support, perhaps there could at least be a dialogue in Parliament, and we'll see what that reaction looks like.
Yeah, and we'll go back, I guess, for the last word to Adil Bhat in Delhi, who we've got back on the line. Adil, great to see you. Nimisha was just saying here that it appears that the protesters are really on a roll right now. What happens next from where you're standing? Are people there bracing for some kind of long standoff? How do you see things developing in the next days and weeks?
Well, that's the kind of sense like that we're getting here when you speak with the protesters, when you speak with spokesperson of Cockroach Janta party, and also activists or political activists, or like unions, like there are different unions also, workers union, farmers union. So this site has become, site of what they call site of solidarity, is like what they're trying to tell to Indians, to people, that they would love to extend their solidarity. It doesn't matter if a political party is an opposition political party like Congress, they would like every major political party to come here and extend their solidarities. So the movement is entirely dependent on solidarity, and that's what we have been kind of, I've been here for the last 6 hours roughly now, and we saw like political parties and their leaders have been coming here on this protesting side as they kind of completed their speaking inside the parliament. We saw Sharad Pawar, one of the tallest leaders, he's known as opposition, one of the tallest leaders. He came here, he extended his solidarity here. We saw a lot of politicians from Aam Aadmi Party, which happened to like rule Delhi for a couple of years, for the last 10, 15 years. They came here, they're also extending solidarity. So until we see, like, if we see these solidarities from activists, farmers union, and from other political parties, I think this movement can survive, and it will give it kind of an impetus, like kind of a trigger, and they're hoping that more people will join. It doesn't matter where they come from, whether the political party is an opposition political party or small political party in some state. So that's the sense we get from the Jantar Mantar side.
Okay, and what's the sense you're getting, Nimisha?
I mean, I think the thing that stands out the most to me, Jared, is on social media as well as on public forums, people are repeatedly now coming out to say criticizing this government is not anti-national, criticizing Prime Minister Modi is not anti-Hindu, speaking out, having a dissenting opinion even about the party that you support is okay. Yeah. We have young people taking to social media saying it is okay to not stand violently and blindly by the party that you support, almost encouraging perhaps BJP supporters also to step out and say, we do support this party, but please can you look after these students who are demanding change? And that momentum also seems to be building, and that'll be an interesting one to watch. Hopefully, with more people actually engaging in dialogue, that would be a bit of an ideal outcome, not just with the government and the protesters, but even Indians amongst themselves, who can be very divided when it comes to the supporting or being against this government.
Yeah, we'll definitely keep an eye on this. We've really appreciated your engaging dialogue today. Nimisha Jaiswal in the studio here with me, and Adil Bhat in New Delhi. Thank you so much to you both, and Adil, thank you to the students that you spoke to who gave us their time. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
So that's the story so far of India's Cockroach Janta party. Thank you so much for your questions and comments today. We've got lots more content on this across our platforms. Please do continue to weigh in and let us know what you think and where this all might be headed. As always, if you like this stream, hit the like button, and if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to all of our channels. I'm Jared Reid in Berlin. Thank you so much for watching, and see you soon.